just happens to be Kimberly's birthday.
Dun, 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 dun.
What?
And what better way to spend it than making a podcast with
Making
them?
a podcast. Yay.
Yay.
So
We did have a big epic celebration this weekend.
it was only 4 days.
This is the fourth day.
Okay. So 3 and 3/4 days.
And 3/4 days. It's very fun.
So with that, the icebreaker question is, what makes you feel celebrated?
Well, I'm an Enneagram 7, so lots of things. It's hard to pick one. You know, what's funny about birthdays is for a long time, I really hated the birthday song, especially as a waitress. So I sang a lot of birthday songs and it's always kind of awkward. Like that song is slow and I always kind of just didn't know what to do while people were singing it to me. And then
bring the awkward.
Yeah. When I came into my adulthood, I think you knew that at a certain point where you're like, oh, the birthday song sucks. And so people stopped singing happy birthday to me. And then I went through a couple of birthdays where no one sang happy birthday and I felt sad.
Right.
So there's no cake, there's no candle, there's no happy birthday. And I was like, bring it back, but bring it back faster. So whenever we're celebrating a birthday with someone, I always try to lead the birthday song because first of all, it's a weirdly hard song to sing. And second of all, if you let someone else lead, they might start it really slow. Do you know
or completely off key.
Both. Do you know who sings it really slow?
Mm.
Your dad. Ben's dad sings the happy birthday song and he starts it. He goes, happy birthday. It's so slow. And then for the rest of the song, everybody has to take this really slow cadence. So now when someone else's birthday, I want them to get sung to, but I don't want them to have to sit there forever. And so I start it and I go, happy birthday to you. I just start it really fast.
That's good. That's smart. Sometimes you just got to take the lead. You got to step up, right? Leaders go first. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So I like a birthday where I want to have a meal with people I love and I want my birthday to be acknowledged. I've had a couple birthday dinners where the dinner is for my birthday, but it's never acknowledged in the dinner. I'm not the one that's talked about. Like nothing happens that makes it any different than any other dinner. So I want the birthday to be acknowledged. Right. So that's what makes me feel celebrated. I want to share a meal and I want whatever we're celebrating to be talked about, at least for part of it.
Okay.
How about you?
Right. Basically coffee and booze. That's really all I need is coffee and booze and you. My
answer is like hyper specific and yours is like, as long as there's coffee.
This year I'm going to add karaoke in though.
Oh boy.
So this year I am investing, not buying, but investing in a karaoke machine.
Hashtag Enneagram 7.
And yes, so we will be having a very large karaoke party here in Austin.
That's some serious Enneagram 7
right?
Energy right
serious.
Joy is an investment.
It is. Exactly. Right.
All right. So if you guys want to come, maybe we can do an online.
Yeah. So hit me up in the DMs. Right.
That might just have to be you though. I don't know if I want to do karaoke online. Depends how much whiskey there is. It's coffee and booze. So if there's no booze, then I might go online with my our trademark karaoke song is Don't Stop Believing.
Yep. There may or may not be video that still exists out there on the internet of us doing karaoke to that song.
I think this is the first time we ever did karaoke together.
No, we did for the longest time at that little bar called the Rosebud, I think it was.
And someone tried to do
in Chicagoland,
the Youth of a Nation, and it was just way too fast.
Yeah.
Then it took like 10 years for us to do it again. And it was because there were kids running the karaoke and every other song was the Frozen song. And we were like, make it end.
Like, you got that, let that go. I mean, come on, kids. That's enough.
Okay.
All right. So to our listeners, welcome to the Kimberly and Coach show, where we bring you actionable practices and celebrations that you can use in your leadership and collaboration today. I'm Coach Kimberly, who's right next to me. Today, we're talking about the stories that we bring into the job and into conflict and how our emotional reactions can be tied to that.
I didn't really think through this icebreaker into this topic. It's like, yay, a celebration. There's like, whew, basement out. Conflict. Let's talk
emotional conflict.
About conflict.
Right?
Well, why are we talking about conflict today?
So
lead us in.
Right. So when we do team dynamics consulting, we oftentimes will work with teams to set a foundation, to set them up for great culture, for great collaboration, to bring them understanding and to give them tools up front. But other times when people bring us in, it's because things are on fire, just straight up dumpster fire. And they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know if lawsuits are coming. And they just need somebody to come in and help fix things. And then it's straight to conflict mediation, right? I mean, we just got to get in. And so Kimberly, can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between those two scenarios that we've been in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, our preference is the first one, which is where you're investing in your culture and your relational dynamics before things are on fire. And the reason is because what we're doing is we're kind of giving a tool belt, and it's like preloaded with some tools. You have some language, you have some ways to manage conflict before conflict has gotten out of control. And then when you hit conflict and you go into conflict mediation, everyone already has some tools. Everyone already has some language for handling.
Right. You've got scaffolding in place already and an understanding already. And it does make things go way smoother in conflict mediation.
It does. Yeah. It's very nice to handle conflict where you already are speaking some of the similar language. And this is where in previous episodes, we've talked about the team map. A team map can be really helpful because it already is preloading how people are different and what they bring into collaboration. And that also includes what they bring into conflict. And so you've already done a little bit of that work when you invest early. And because you're doing that, you're also setting the stage that when relational things are going sideways, we care about that and we're going to invest in fixing it because you've done the work to invest in that already before you absolutely had to. But a lot of people come into the workplace feeling like team building and team dynamics is kind of a fluff conversation.
Right.
Like if we have budget left at the end of the year, maybe we'll do something fun.
Maybe it'll be a nice, cute little thing. We'll play some games.
And I will tell you, we're pretty fun. So if you have that budget at the end of the year, I mean, you won't be bored, but it is about a lot more than being bored. And there's a lot of research that talks about how the way that people feel and the way that people feel about specifically their relationships with their manager and with their colleagues affects drastically the bottom line. It affects productivity, it affects efficiency, but it also affects creativity and innovation. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish in your company, if you have people that cannot work well together, you are going to have less profits, you know? And there's just so much research that supports that. And a lot of people, we don't think about that. We think, how many times have we heard, why can't people just do their jobs?
Oh my gosh.
Like
every engagement?
Every single one. If there is conflict, there is a boss that's going to ask us, like, everyone's here to work. Why can't you just do your job? Why can you just make them do their work?
Oh my gosh.
And it's because we have this divorced picture of the way that people feel and relate to the way that they work. But because human beings are not robots, or as Ben likes to call them, meat puppets, the way that people work is highly tied to the way that they relate. And so and
it's only taken us how long to figure this out?
I mean, we just are always
10 or 12,000 years. I don't know. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh.
We did go through a whole stage in the Industrial Revolution where we were kind of asking the question, can people be robots? What if we just set up that paradigm? Yeah. And
can we set up our schools that way to just make them nice little factory workers?
That is a whole different podcast.
Sorry, my bad.
But I think we are in the backswing of that, where we're, especially in like this day and age, people care about culture. There's so much research that people don't really leave their professional job so much as they leave their manager or their problem employee that's not dealt with. And so a lot of times when people are like, okay, I will spend money if you can just come in and fix this, the problem is already quite large.
And so it's already a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And so often I find myself saying like, this is going to take a little time. Now, nobody really wants it to take time because now you're losing money and you have to spend money to fix it. So it's a bad combination, right? They're like, how fast can you fix this? But if you think about this will make more sense maybe to some of the women, but if your jewelry box gets dumped and you have like 6 or 7 necklaces that are all jumbled and mixed up, you can't pull all of them at the same time to undo that. So you have a big messed up knot of different things. You have to pull one string at a time, and that takes some time. And that's when you're going into conflict mediation. You're saying, this is first, we've got to hear all the stories. Everybody's got to have their time to tell what's going on for them. And then we have to pull one string at a time until we can get underneath. What are the things? What are the policies that need to be in place? What are the problems that need to be addressed culturally and in the incidents that are like coming to the top?
Right.
And so that then you have to do that. And then usually at that point, companies are like, okay, let's do some foundational work while we're at it, because you don't really want to get there again.
Right. Unless you just really like pain, suffering, and having to run the shop by yourself because everyone's resigning.
That is a lot of people. They think, I wish I could just run this by myself. Like, it sucks that I need a team, because it's they don't want to do the work and they don't want to suffer. So it's like, well, I'll be a freelancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they find out that freelancers also have to work with people.
They have to have relationships, so people have to like you. Yes.
Darn it. Yeah.
Yes, because if people don't like you, they don't hire you. I just want to, for my freelancer friends out there, I love you. I just want you to understand that they have to also like you and also like your work. Because if you're hard to work with, they'll go find somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, if your Kung Fu is so good, I mean, there is like elite, like high, like hermit billionaire. Like if you're so talented, then maybe people will work with you anyway. But
there's not
it's not very many.
Let's just
we all know the eccentric billionaires who get to be jerks, but their Kung Fu is good.
Yeah.
But they're more stories. They're not everyday people.
No. For everybody else, you have to be.
You have to work with people. Yeah.
You do. So what do we need to understand about people in conflict then? Like, because of course we know that every single conflict mediation just is like, oh, well, here's what's happening. And one person says, oh, well, you called me a bad word. And the other person says, yep, I did. That was inappropriate. And then it's done, right? That's all you need.
Those are definitely the easy examples of conflict mediation.
Yeah.
And you go in, the person says, this is what you said. And they said, yep, that was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. And then the company says, going forward, we will not tolerate that. And they said, we understand. And then 10 minutes, you're out and it's been addressed. And sometimes it does go that way.
There's like at least 3 times in the history of the universe that's happened.
That's not usually when you're paying someone to come in and help. Right. You've already kind of had that conversation, and how it went is I asked for this person's report and they called me a bad word. And then you went to that person, they said, I didn't call her a bad word. And then now you're like, I don't know what to do here. And it is a lot of the reason why conflict goes unaddressed in the workplace is that the person who needs to handle it is in a he said, she said kind of a situation. So we're specifically today going to be talking about that he said, she said. And so a lot of times what people say is, well, can you just figure out who is lying? Right?
Oh, yes, because that's easy.
One of them's lying. Just figure it out and we'll fire at that one.
Yeah, let's polygraph them right now.
That's what they want. They want me to be a polygraph. Just go in 10 minutes up. It's this one. And it is not never true that someone is lying. There certainly are people that they will act inappropriately. And when they're called to task for it, they will say, I didn't do that.
Right. That's not what happened.
It's called lying. It's sometimes called gaslighting. It definitely happens. But more often, what you're experiencing is that human beings are unreliable narrators, especially when they're emotionally reactive, right?
No.
Now, I'm not saying that the first thing you should do is say what you're saying isn't true, because a lot of times what people are doing is they're explaining their experience of something and it doesn't match the other person's experience of it. But that doesn't mean it's not as simple as somebody is lying. It's more that certain things happened, and then the way that we interpret those things is different on both sides. So an easy example would be if you are like an 11-year-old girl and your mom is being annoying and you roll your eyes and your mom has a specific reaction to those eyes being rolled, right? And you're like, as the kid, like, I wasn't being disrespectful, whatever it is that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember being, this is a specific example from my childhood, because I can give some sass with my face, but I would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. All I did was move my eyes,
All.
And so you have to become a mom and then you realize how annoying the rolled eyes are. You just thought your mom was being just dramatic before. But we have these things that as we experience them, we feel a certain way. And the things that come into that moment of conflict, it can be from the way that we're wired. It can be from the culture we grew up in. It can be from trauma that we've experienced. Maybe you had a really bad boss. And whenever your bad boss said this thing, it meant things were going to go really bad from here. And now you just have a great boss who happened to accidentally say the same phrase and it doesn't mean the same thing. And so we have these stories that we bring into conflict.
Right. But sometimes the stories are already there though, too. So like a long time ago, Kimberly and I worked at the same training company.
Right.
No one is surprised by this.
We're doing computer training specifically.
Yes, computer training specifically. Yeah. And so
guess which one was better at that?
Well, we won't go there. I mean, golly. But when Kimberly came in, I was there first, and Kimberly came in after I did. And there was a particular story about one particular trainer.
Oh, yeah.
Who was favored above the others. It was not me, by the way.
Not in the same way, at least.
Not the same way. I mean, I had some favor there, but I only pulled the prima donna card every so often, every blue moon on a leap year. But we had another trainer who the story was, this trainer was the manager's favorite. Mm-hmm. This trainer was always flirting and always gets what they want. And, anytime you have a prep day in your schedule, you can pretty much kiss that up. And then prep days, keep in mind, we taught 8-hour-long classes. Okay. So we stood up in front of a class and we would talk for 8 hours. We'd say words for 8 hours. And, you're on stage, for 8 hours. It's really a very,
let me just tell you that talking about Excel for 8 hours was not my jam.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you had a prep day, they were gold. They were gold. But, when there was a prep day on the schedule, the story was you could pretty much kiss that goodbye because this other favored trainer would be sick. Right. Almost always.
Well, and the story was that he got the most prep time in the first place because he asked for it all the time. He just needed more time to prep.
Mm-hmm. Let's call him Jimmy.
Yes.
All right.
So Jim already gets all this prep time. And then when you have a prep day, there's a really good chance you'll get a call the morning of when you thought you got to sleep in. And he'll be like, oh, Jim is so sick. We really need you to teach Excel today.
It's like, sure, Jimmy was sick.
Jimmy was out late with the manager. At least that was the story.
That was the story.
And I heard that story the week I got trained. And partially because Ben already worked there. And so people were like bringing me under their wing a little bit. Like they kind of knew me. But in the training, they were like, here's how you teach a class. Here's where you get your resources. Here's blah, blah, blah. And also watch out for Jim. The boss always flirts with Jim and he gets the most prep time. And if you have a prep day, there's a good chance you'll wake up on that morning and it'll be from a call from the boss saying, oh, Jim is so sick. You're going to have to teach Excel today. And so you literally imagine you come into the office and there's a story about a person. That's going to color the way that you experience that person
right
as you move forward. And so that sometimes does happen in a workplace where the story exists in the culture. Watch out for this person. They're really exacting. This manager is a micromanager. This manager, whatever. Be careful. If that person's whispering, it's probably about you. Whatever the story is, sometimes when you're going into a company and things are really sideways, is because someone has a story that precedes them and you have to do some real work.
Right.
to change the story. But the other thing that happens is that sometimes it happens through the story that we bring. So for example, we worked with a company where the owner of the company, we did Myers-Briggs for their team map, the most intuitive person that I've ever, like Myers-Briggs has 4 poles. So it's like, you could be like a little bit intuitive or you could be like off the charts. This person was off the charts. And so one of the things that comes with that is that those people tend to be pretty resistant to being micromanaged, because people who are intuitive like to figure out the pathways themselves and the meaning themselves. And so when those people become managers, they're cautious about micromanaging. They want people to feel like they have a lot of freedom in how they get to the target. But this person had some highly sensing people on the team, which is the other side of the Myers-Briggs pole. It's either you're sensing or you're intuitive. And sensing doesn't mean sensitive. It means like you need data from your senses. Like you want clarity. You want to be told, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. This is exactly how I do it, right? This is exactly the pathway you'd like me to use. And so in this boss's efforts to not be a micromanaging boss, which from her story was the worst kind of boss you could be, she was giving very vague instructions to people who needed very detailed instructions. And so does that mean one person is bad and one person is not? No, it just means that they are speaking a little bit of a different language as they figure out how tasks are done. And once they knew that about each other, and this boss, for instance, knew like for these employees, they need a lot of clarity, and she needs to follow up and say, do you feel like you know how to do this task? Do you feel like you have enough clarity? Once they had that in place, once they knew the stories that they were bringing into it, they experienced a lot less conflict, and the overall morale of the person, those couple of people on their team went through the roof because they felt more supported. They felt like they had what they needed to do the job. And it wasn't that, you know, someone always steals the prep day. It's not like a bad story. It's just that they were bringing different stories about what makes what makes good instructions. They had different stories around that. Right. And so when you get into conflict mediation, you're looking at the facts of a conflict, but you also are trying to get under it. You know, like, okay, we don't know whether or not this person called this other person a bad word, but it's clear that by the time we got to this conversation, people were frustrated. So what actually happened is important, but underneath that, the question that I'm going to give you, this is the practice to take away, is to ask, when you were having that conversation, how did you experience that interaction? Because then you get into, instead of the he said, she said, it might be that I so viscerally felt like this person was treating me like a bad word that now in my narration of it, they actually called me that. Or maybe they really felt that you were being a jerk and they did call you that, but they don't remember calling you that, but they felt it. And so instead of worrying so much about what exactly happened, which you often, unless there's a video somewhere, you can't always parse that out. But what you can do is say, what was happening? Like, did you feel like that person was not leading you well? You know, did you feel like the request was unfair? Okay, why did you feel the request was unfair? Well, she asked me already 5 times that day, and I had already told her there's no way I could get to it. Okay, so then let's talk about the policy. You know, and so you kind of going backwards, but the tool that is going to help you is to understand the way the person is experiencing that. And it's going to help you for 2 reasons. Because one is it's going to become clear what's underneath the incident, because an incident is just one thing, but what's underneath, that's going to affect a lot of things. So if you can get under that, you can do more good in the relationship. But the second thing that happens is that once I understand the experience that person is having, like I had 6 people asking me for things and I felt really overwhelmed and I felt like there's no possible way for me to succeed at this day. And you were the person who caught that from me. And then they're able to say, that wasn't entirely your fault. I'm sorry. But if I tell you I can't get to it, I can't get to it. You can work on that. Not only are you getting to a solution, but you also are starting to see that person who right now is the villain in your story, as a whole human being who's experiencing this incident in a context of other incidents, in a context of personality preferences, in the context of past experiences.
In the context of the story that happened just before
Right.
they encountered you.
Right. With their boss, and they couldn't call their boss that word.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm. So.
And then when you humanize the person, you can have a little more compassion, and that really can help as you're rebuilding and you're repairing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's good words. Good words. So to you, our dear listener, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this little practice can assist you during your day. Thanks for tuning in to the Kimberly and Coach Show, where we endorse glorious, extravagant dinners and dim dive bar comedy clubs at equal levels for completely different reasons. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.